In my opinion, one of the reasons why mainstream women's wrestling is in the superficial state it's in is because of all these fanboys drooling over them only for their looks, alright? And I'm not talking about simply thinking they look nice or having a poster on the wall, because I think a lot of them look nice. I'm talking about the losers that are just drooling over them like, oh, show me puppies, I want to marry her. Like, why do they do that? I mean, why would you drool over someone hundreds of miles away? How do you actually know they're hot? I mean, haven't you been with a girl where from a distance at first, she looked all hot and sexy, but the second she came up close, it's like, oh, nasty, you know, her legs are all textured and crevassy, her hair's all gross, her lips feel like rubber stamps, and you're like, oh, fuck, get the fuck away from me. You know, like from a distance she looked nice, but up close it's like, oh. So I don't understand how these fanboys can get themselves all worked up over touched up movie posters, you know, and then like images on a TV screen, you know, of people hundreds of miles away. And the same goes the other way around for fangirls drooling over guys, you know. How do you know for sure, absolutely, that the person is actually hot? You don't. So stop drooling. Let's pretend for a second. Imagine that we're Nintendo. We're the Nintendo Wii, and we're over here trying to compete with the new Xbox and all their amazing graphics over there. Now, we have two advantages. Number one, we have 20 years worth of franchise names, Mario, Zelda, that they can never hope to match. And number two, we have our motion control. The Nintendo Wii is based off the motion sensing concept. Those are our two strengths, right? Now, what would happen if we took these two strengths of ours, these two advantages, and threw them in the trash can? And instead, we just released a bunch of no-name, generic games with no motion control and just tried to compete with the new Xbox based on graphics. What do you think would happen? We would get our asses kicked, right? We would get run over because instead of playing to our strengths, we tried to play to one of somebody else's. And that, in my opinion, is exactly what professional wrestling is doing in the face of MMA, and in my opinion, in essence, kneeling down in front of the competition. Now, what is the main thing that MMA fans and a lot of people in general laugh at about professional wrestling? That it's fake, right? That it's a bunch of guys in the ring pretending to fight, doing all these moves that don't work in real life, right? Like at a sports bar, if you put an MMA match on one screen and a professional wrestling match on the other screen, the wrestling match is the joke, right? In my opinion, professional wrestling cannot be trying to directly compete with MMA as a fighting sport. And when it does, such as when TNA tried to do MMA style matches, in my opinion, it makes wrestling look like a bigger joke and gets laughed at even more, right? And what about you wrestling fans? You know, would you really try to defend professional wrestling sport for sport, you know, athlete versus athlete, you know, John Cena against Frank Mir? Like, are you kidding? You know, Frank Mir has been training in martial arts ever since he was a little kid. He is a legitimate fighter and a former UFC champion. You know, what's John Cena? You know, do you really think you're going to win that debate? You know, or do you think you're going to get laughed at even more? So then, what are the strengths for professional wrestling? What advantages does professional wrestling have? In my opinion, professional wrestling has two strengths over MMA. The first strength, in my opinion, is storytelling. MMA can put together all the fancy video packages it wants, but the bottom line is that the predetermined nature of professional wrestling allows for the possibility of a level of layered badass storytelling that MMA could never hope to touch. Alright? The Austin McMahon saga, the NWO phenomenon. MMA will never have these things. Alright? The second advantage, the second strength in my opinion, is character. Alright? Once again, MMA can have their guys trash talk each other all they want. But the bottom line is that the fictional aspect of professional wrestling allows for a level of complex character development and fantastic character creation that MMA could never hope to reach. Right? The immortal Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, the bad guy, Razor Ramon, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. MMA will never reach these level of personalities. Alright? In the typical MMA pay-per-view, there's only like a couple personalities I'm interested in. Professional wrestling allows for the potential of a whole card filled with interesting personalities. Alright? So in my opinion, these are the two major strengths that professional wrestling has over MMA. The problem is, though, is that like my video game example, the WWE seems to have taken these two strengths, these two advantages, and thrown them into the trash can, right? Instead of pumping up badass storyline and amazing character development all the way up to a level that MMA could never hope to reach, instead, we seem to be getting watered down storyline. We seem to be getting the same old recycled crap and all these generic Wrestler 101s, alright? To me, in my opinion, that's like kneeling in front of the competition. That's like saying, we're not even gonna try to give you our best shot.